Well, good morning. This is Morgan Ortagus. I have been filling in for Hugh Hewitt all morning, former State Department spokesperson. You've seen me there or on Fox News. One of the things that I've done actually for two administrations now, both in the Bush administration and the Trump administration, is I worked with our next guest, my really, really great friend, my brilliant friend, my funny friend, Ambassador Rick Grenell. How are you, my friend?
Morgan, thanks for having me. Such a pleasure to be here, and I love that you're hosting. You might need to do this permanently.
You. I don't know about that. Listen, you're in California, so you got up very early to call into my show. I really appreciate it. You know, Rick, we've been talking about national security all morning. You were ambassador to Germany. There's so much I want to ask you there. But what our listeners may not know is that you are actually actively campaigning around the country to take back the House and the Senate. You're making sure amazing candidates like Kari Lake become governors of important purple states. Tell me, how do you feel about this midterm election that is now just weeks away?
Well, you're right, I'm campaigning. You're right, I'm from California. But this morning, I'm coming to you from Salt Lake City. I campaigned with Mike Lee yesterday, and I'm on my way to Wisconsin to campaign for 2 days with Ron Johnson. Look, I think that our candidates are focusing on the economy and gas prices, the border, and crime. And those are the issues that are really resonating. We see over and over and over the Democrats are trying to push, issues that really do not matter to the American people. And I can't tell you how many times I'm hearing Democratic candidates talk about January 6th, for instance. And most voters are just really worried about the state of the economy. So I've been in Nevada with Adam Laxalt quite a bit. I've been all over Arizona for our 4 candidates there. We've got Kari Lake, Blake Masters, Abe Hamadeh running for Attorney General, and Mark Fincham for Secretary of State. And I just feel like the momentum is with us. The red wave is really coming. Now, the national media are going to try to pretend like there is no red wave. But the reality is when you're on the ground and you see the excitement, there is a huge red wave coming. It always was coming. They've tried to dampen it, but I don't think they can stop it.
I think you're right. I mean, you made such a crucial point about being on the ground. I was telling our listeners earlier this morning that thanks to you, actually, I had the privilege of meeting Kari Lake last week when we were in Phoenix together. And I think she's the most charismatic person that we have running in this cycle. I mean, she's so incredibly impressive. And I know it makes a huge difference, Rick, when you go out and go around the country, as I am, to help campaign and talk about important national security issues and all the things that you just talked about. Let's try to get to Germany really quick because you were ambassador there. Rick, did you see this wild story that the German interior minister had to sack the German cybersecurity chief for his reported links to Russia? What in the world is going on there?
Well, one of the problems that I did see that, and one of the problems that we have in Germany is that they have a very good intelligence service, but the intelligence service does not speak to policymakers on a regular basis. It's not integrated. They don't use it. Chancellor Merkel did not use the intelligence services to understand what was going on. It was separate. It was not integrated. And we really saw that as a problem because the German intelligence services can be very good. So I think what you're seeing is the German intelligence services beginning to flex their muscle with policymakers and say, we've got some problems in the government. This is what we're finding. We've got people that need to be rooted out, and I'm glad that they're starting to do it.
But Rick Grenell, again, former ambassador to Germany for President Trump, the Germans very famously, as we all know, laughed at President Trump when he was at the United Nations and called them out for their dependence on Russian energy. Who's laughing now? And are the Germans actually taking any of this seriously? They still seem to be quite dependent on Russian energy to me.
They have Olaf Scholz, who's now the new chancellor, was the finance minister when I was there. He's a very good guy. If you have to have a socialist in charge of a country, he's probably the best socialist that you're going to find. He's steady. He's flipped the script on Chancellor Merkel's policy. He said, we got to pay our NATO bill. He said we should not have this Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Remember, it's the Senate Democrats, Morgan. You know this better than anybody. The Senate Democrats, with the Biden administration and Chancellor Merkel, dropped the Trump sanctions on the Russian pipeline. That's what caused the war in Ukraine. There's no question about the white flag that they waved. We had, in the Trump administration, that Nord Stream 2 Russian pipeline sanctioned. The Senate Democrats came in, dropped the sanctions, and we saw quickly, several months later, a war in Ukraine. So I think Olaf Scholz recognizes that policy didn't work. The Germans are now redoing their energy policy. They're having more coal and more nuclear energy than they ever have. That is not what Chancellor Merkel wanted.
Well, I just thank you so much for getting up early. Ambassador Rick Grenell, my friend, doing the Lord's work campaigning around the country. I am Morgan Ortagus. This was my first time guest hosting the Hugh Hewitt Show. I hope you enjoyed it. You can find me on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Morgan Ortagus. You can also find me Polaris National Security, polaris-us.org. You can find us on social media there as well. I have loved these 3 hours with you. I hope to be back. Thank you, and God bless America.